recently, Rome Millennial, a YouTuber with over 150,000 subscribers, had an interview with prominent white nationalist, president of the National Policy Institute, and co-editor of AltRight.com, Richard Spencer. And this caused a bit of a ruckus online. So people took issue to the interview for different reasons, including another YouTuber, Contrapoints. By the way, Contra's videos are actually really good, better than mine, probably. So I really recommend watching them. Contra and Roaming Millennial had some spats on Twitter and eventually decided to have a live hangout discussing the issue. So far, I haven't seen much discussion of this issue outside of that hangout, a few Twitter conversations, and Bearing also did a video on it, which we're going to look at in a bit. I don't think any of these do the topic justice, so I'm throwing my 2 cents into the issue. As if I haven't kicked enough hornet's nests already.
But I do think engaging with people you disagree with is a valuable, worthwhile exercise. For you personally, and if you've got an audience of some kind, for them as well. Now the response that statement would get from most of these whinging SJWs is something like, but Richard Spencer isn't just someone you disagree with, he's an actual Nazi. And I'm sorry, but that's just fucking retarded. If you don't disagree with someone, then you agree with them. Pick one.
This was a weird argument. And I know Bearing's not supposed to be some intellectual powerhouse, but if he's wrong, he's wrong. The word just there. That changes the grammar of the sentence. They're not denying that he's someone they disagree with, they're pointing out that that's not the only thing that he is. Do you see the grammatical issue of that sentence? Okay, cool. And there's counter-arguments to that, like the fact that there's awkward definitions of the term Nazi, and also that this stick your head in the sand and don't engage style of political punditry has been going on for a long time and hasn't curbed the rise of white nationalism. So I don't actually think it's particularly a good idea. So there are good arguments against that statement there. However, that's not the main issue here. The main issue is that's not Contra's argument.
Fucking hell, Contra. For someone who reckons that Roaming Millennial shouldn't allow people she disagrees with to express their thoughts on her channel...
This is the only other point in the video worth addressing, and it's a really bad one, because that wasn't Contrapoint's issue with the interview. And Bearing knows it, since when Vadim took him to task on Twitter for this claim, Bearing responded with this video clip.
I know there are a lot of people who are saying that, I mean, online, that you're saying that, you know, don't talk to him at all. And it's, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, your issue is with not just the interview itself, which I think a lot of people did have issue with, but also kind of the way that it was conducted, I guess, if I'm right.
Yes.
Yeah. Contra's issue with the interview was the softball nature of it, and the way Roaming went about it. Not the fact that it happened in and of itself. So, yeah, this is pretty dishonest of you, Bearing. But even more dishonest is Roaming Millennial doing a 180 and defending Bearing. Like, you already let Contra clarify multiple times in your Hangouts, and you also succinctly explained his position. And now you're like, why? I can't understand this. People may respond with this tweet from Contrapoints suggesting that we shouldn't give a platform to those who spout racial hate. However, neither I nor Contrapoints suggest that merely engaging with fascists or presenting their ideas is giving them a platform. And that's not what is meant in this context, even if it could be argued to be such. So, yeah. Present your opponent's arguments accurately, please. I think there were also a few points within the debate between Contra and Roaming Millennial that I think were worth discussing. So the first one I wanted to talk about is the idea that if Spencer's ideas are really this terrible, then it will be obvious to people, and presenting them will only destroy him.
If nothing else, like I'm of the belief that, you know, if his ideas are really that awful, there's nothing to be harmed by showing them.
The bad ideas are obviously bad, Brigade. This idea should be obviously bad. But it's touted around in this sort of free marketplace of ideas crowd with not much scrutiny, to be honest. It should be obviously false. People believe really, 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 really bad ideas all the time. Humans aren't perfect creatures, and our brains definitely aren't. To get through an average day, we didn't evolve to scientifically test everything that may or may not happen. If you tell someone that you'll see them at 3, you don't require some proof, you don't shout citation needed, what happens is you mostly take their word for it. A lot of human interaction or human cognition is based around heuristics, and there are plenty of insane and just outwardly wrong things that on the face appear pretty intuitive. So let's take the idea that vaccines cause autism, for example. Autism is a developmental disorder that appears to be mostly genetic, but may also have some connection to exposure to high levels of prenatal testosterone. So basically you're born with it. And the MMR jab just happens to be done at the same time the symptoms start to make themselves known. So you wouldn't be able to tell your kid was autistic before they got the jabs because they were just too young and didn't show the behaviors. And almost the entire child population in the UK gets these vaccines. I'm pretty sure it's a legal requirement. And autism is still really, really fucking rare. But most people don't know these facts. So most people will understand that vaccines are an injection. They'll understand it's got chemicals in it and stuff like that. They'll also understand that autism is some kind of disorder. It's something it's something that isn't normal with a kid. So it's extremely intuitive for someone to think that an injection can cause some kind of disorder in a kid, right? But it's not an idea that's going to immediately flag as bad in their heads without some background knowledge, without some understanding of science, and it's not stuff you can just automatically get a lot of the time. So, Stokel Dominus recently uploaded a lecture from a meetup he was at, from a skeptic meetup. A psychologist who actually studies conspiracy theories, Dr. Daniel Jolley. He did a really good lecture. I thoroughly recommend watching it, and also subscribe to Sturkel's channel. In it, he goes into how studies are, have shown that being presented a conspiracy theory first, before being shown the debunk, makes you more likely to accept that conspiracy theory than being shown the debunk first and then presented the conspiracy theory, which is why I also debunked the conspiracy theory before explaining it. Just wanted to know if anyone noticed I did that. These ideas aren't getting better by being presented first. Insane or crazy concepts can seem entirely reasonable without a conceptual framework to apply them to. Without that contextual framework, the autism is something that kids are born with, and the levels of the numbers and just the understanding of science, then it's understandable for someone to not it's understandable for someone to accept the idea that vaccines cause autism, even though it just doesn't make sense scientifically with what we know. So, presentation matters. Presentation matters a lot when it comes to when it comes to ideas. You can argue a good case very well, and you can argue a bad case very poorly. But the opposite is also true. You can argue a good case very badly and argue a bad case very well. You can be a good salesman and have a shit product. So when Roaming Millennial says this about Richard Spencer,
it sounds a lot like your problem with the interview was that Richard Spencer came across too well, that he represented his points too reasonably. And I mean, has it occurred to you that maybe he isn't exactly what the media has been trying to push? I mean, because that's a very interesting criticism.
This looks like a wink wink nudge nudge. Spencer's ideas are gaining traction because he's right. Because bad ideas don't ever gain traction. And it's weird. Because Roaming Millennial sounds like someone who's quite intelligent. So this should be an obvious understanding to her. Like, a good salesman can sell salt to a fucking slug. This isn't a concept that is hard to understand. And Contrapoints makes a really, really good point here.
I think that Richard Spencer and white nationalist rhetoric represents a kind of hijacking of these norms of conversation. They exploit our generosity in a sense.
Fascists prey on your benefit of the doubt. I've said it before and I'll say it again. And within the sort of anti-SJW and young conservative spheres, this has gotten to a pathological point. And here's a great example.
When someone says they want peace, they want this to be peaceful, they want this to be, incentivized, they want this to be voluntary. As an interviewer, you know, like, no, you don't. But do you really? Like, I mean, he said it. I'm going to take that at face value. Whether or not it's actually true, whether or not he actually agrees it, I can't know. But, you know, if that's what he wants to label his ideology as, I can't really do much about that.
Is black genocide right? From alternativeright.com. Found through the Wayback Machine. Now, this is a site Richard Spencer co-founded. So this article, being on his site, is a very big red flag, shall we say. But then again, he didn't write it. It was written by a man called Colin Liddell. So clearly Richard Spencer didn't do nothing, because he didn't write the words. He just owns the site it was published on. So who is Colin Liddell? He's the co-founder of the site. Someone Richard Spencer clearly worked with and endorsed. So, yeah. The idea that this is guilt by association is bullshit. This is guilt by endorsement, which isn't a fallacy as far as I'm concerned. If you endorse someone, then yeah, you're endorsing them, for fuck's sake. It's a bit different to, like, guilt by association, just, like, via association. These are two different things. So, that's not the only time. The second person that we have on our list is Millennial Woes, and it comes with some personal interactions from yours truly.
Millennial Woes, I think, is just the kind of person that we want in the alt-right.
So, what kind of person is Millennial Woes? So, to not have him mixed up with Roaming Millennial, I'm going to call him Woes from now on. So, Woes advocates ethnostates just like any old white nationalist, and he's pretty prominent within the alt-right. Richard Spencer gave him a ringing endorsement and had him flew out to the National Policy Institute conference. You know, the one with the Heil Trump and the Nazi salutes. That one. Yeah, Millennial Woes was also a speaker there. So this guy is pretty well connected within the alt-right. And he did a video where he said that ethnostates are impossible to achieve peacefully. In this now privated video, he suggests that it's a pipe dream to have this peaceful ethnostate idea, that it can be done. And if you say that you want an ethnostate and only if it can be achieved peacefully, then you don't want an ethnostate.
I have to tell you that those ideas are hopeless. I'm sorry. But they really are. Ethno-nationalism is to say that you want it, but only if it can be achieved peacefully. It is really to say, well, you don't want ethno-nationalism because it cannot be achieved peacefully in our situation, in our circumstance.
I really wonder what he is advocating at this point. I mean, it's like I really can't tell. I mean, it can't be violence. He's not saying gas the kikes race war now, so clearly he's not advocating violence. There's no low-key incitement here at all. And I did a video talking about this subject, and Woe's response, was it to openly debunk my positions and my points? Was it to, you know, admit that he disavowed the original video, or false DMCA me. Yeah. Because this shows someone who's honest. This is the sort of person that Richard Spencer wants in the alt-right. When they're questioned on the methodology of how they're going to achieve their ethnostate, they abuse copyright law to shut you up. It might be worth pointing out that Richard Spencer joke-denounced Millennial Woes when tweeted about this video, so it's pretty safe to say that he knows what Woes thinks about this stuff, and what Woes is implicitly saying. He's just better at PR. So, save me the sales pitch. I know they know what road this goes down, especially Spencer. He is completely aware, via the people he endorses, that, like, it's pretty obvious that there is more to him than just the things he says at face value. And this is arguably not helpful to people. Like, to 50,000 people, if you send this misinformation unchallenged to them, that's dangerous, for fuck's sake. You can't see how that can maybe cause some harm.
Right, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
don't criticize or put his interview under scrutiny. It's
As a more positive aside, I am actually willing to go through the Richard Spencer interview on Roaming Millennials channel and sort of break it down and actually challenge some of the things he was saying. Sort of critically analyze it, if that's something people are interested in. So let me know in the comments if you are. Outside of that, though, here's my sort of final statement. When you're sitting there on your own YouTube channel, you're a political figure, and you're letting someone else say a bunch of shit that you don't agree with. If you're not challenging that, you are letting misinformation go on its own. You're letting misinformation go unchallenged. You are effectively uploading misinformation to your channel, especially when it's on extremely important issues like Richard Spencer's advocacy of violence. A signal boost is promoting them, and promotion is helping them, and especially when you are helping to shield the narrative that Richard Spencer could ever advocate violence. So yeah, that's really the main point, is that challenge these people. It's question these people. Don't just let them sit there and talk shit. Call them on their bullshit. And a massive thank you to all of my patrons. At the moment, YouTube is my only source of income, and your donations allow me to justify spending less time on what feels like a fruitless search for other employment, and more time on research, editing, and eventually some extra money on better equipment when I can start covering my current living costs. Since my last video, my patronage effectively doubled, so I'm probably going to be able to increase my video output significantly, so be sure to set your Patreon limits as well. Don't send me too much money. A thank you to Joe Snyder, Christopher Kamori, Dazafrak, Paul Twatson, AH, Jordan at the Screen, Armando Terran Bremont, Jezin, Chloe Adams, Adam Wallin, Joseph Schmidt, Violent Vegan, Thomas Hernandez, Paulos Tegegen, The Woolly Bumblebee, Frederick Gent, B, and Stefan Fabian.